It's another 40K Fanatics podcast with Shane and Austin. Austin, how you doing on this Thanksgiving week?
It's going okay. It's just going.
It's the reason for the season. For those of you that don't know, this is where we eat many things, many sleep-inducing things. I've noticed we've got some international audience, Austin.
Oh yeah, Canada celebrated their Thanksgiving not too long ago.
Theirs is different than ours?
Yeah, I don't know much about it besides it's earlier.
They just want to be obtuse, I think. Our Canadian neighbors never have to worry about securing that border. You notice that? Austin wants no part of that. Today we're going to talk about a somewhat ironic thing, and I know that I've covered it a little bit. I want to say it might have been a piece of a top 5 list before, but we're going to make it a full. We're going to really turn it around and look at it, which is the internet's ruined 40K.
Ruined it.
Yeah, completely ruined it. It's obvious, and it's never going to be the same again, and that's really sad. So we're going to talk about that. Also, we meant to bring you guys an entire. We meant to be proactive journalists, right? We were going to look at the World Championship reveals that came out last week, and we were going to have some visuals because we're doing this remotely now. I don't know if you guys can tell. Get in the comments, let us know if you can. Also, comment, like, subscribe in all the places that you wish to. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're everywhere. And I lost the entire thing. First of all, the video didn't work. And then we lost the entire thing. So if you guys want, get in the comments. It will require a fairly large mobilization of you all to motivate us to record that again. And also being 2 weeks later, we'll just see. If you guys want it, we'll give it to you. But otherwise, our heart's not in it. And everyone's seen all the stuff. You do want to talk briefly about some of it when we get to the bits box. I understand, though.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and open the bits box then.
All right.
Bits box is the part of the show where we talk about what we've done in the hobby, games we've played, etc. in the last week. Both of us have been to the Craig Winter Invitational.
How was the indoor edition?
Yeah, we played outside, and it was probably the last outside game we're going to get until the spring invitational comes around. It was very cold. It was very windy. We played 40K. We played we played the Duel of Wits, I believe it was called, or something like that. And it was It was a mission out of Craig's White Dwarf subscription, and it was really cool. We had what you had to do was pick the close or far objective markers. There were 6 of them. 3, and we both picked 3 at the beginning of every battle round. The person going first or the person going second, I think, had to reveal one of them. Okay?
Yeah.
And so it was almost like you know when you bid your books in spades?
Mm-hmm.
Do you? Do you know about spades and bidding and books?
Sure.
You don't seem like the type. Have you ever been in jail?
No, I've played plenty of Red Dead Redemption 2 poker.
It's not the same. Spades is its own game. But anyway, you have to say upon looking at your hand how many books you think you and your partner can get, and if you hit it, you get more points, and if you hit it, and if you miss it, you get less. And so it was very similar to that, and it was really fun. However, Craig played his Agents of the Imperium Death Watch kill teams and brought some 60 dudes on foot versus my couple of tanks and I don't know, 15 or 20 dudes on foot, and absolutely slaughtered all of my dudes. He kind of couldn't deal with
talking about that.
He kind of couldn't deal with the tanks. But it didn't matter because I foolishly let everybody out of the tanks. What was happening is I'm so used to playing against tanks that you get your guys out and then the tanks never shoot at your guys or anything.
Oh.
And so I could have just sat in the tanks for multiple turns and then mobbed him, but that's not what I did, and I lost really bad. But we did have fun. How did yours games go? You guys played Old World.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Craig had mentioned while I was there that you couldn't make a save during that whole game.
Yeah, and I think that's a funny thing that we could talk about on a pod someday. The idea about like dice and odds and sort of, the old gambler's fallacy that, well, I'll win next time. It's like, well, no, your odds of winning are actually just as good or bad as they were the first time. And that is true from a mathematical sense. However, if I don't have another dollar to play next time, then the math may never average out, and this time matters. And that was the case with that 40K game. Was the math may have averaged out at some point, but there were some crucial times where well, this math right here is losing me the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that counts too, you bunch of nerds.
But our Old World game, it was Craig's first Old World game. I went over there to his house and we set up a battlefield using some of his AOS terrain. I had planned on bringing my own terrain, but because of how disorganized my life is right now, I wasn't able to grab it in time. But we had a good time. We had his Tomb Kings versus my goblins, and he won the game. He had his skeletons lined out pretty wide, which allowed him to get a bunch of attacks in on my guys. And I had misplayed a little bit and had some mass routing happening. Mass panic, goblins fleeing, causing other goblins to flee. A big chain reaction that eventually cost me the game.
The goblins will do that sometimes, won't they?
Yeah, it's a very swingy army. They got a flank charge I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, you said he had them strung out pretty wide. What are the rules with that? Can you do them 2x8 if you want, or do they need to be 5 by however many rows, or what?
He was doing units of 20 skeletons that were 10 wide, so 2x10. And the thing with that is you get more attacks in, but the only thing to watch for is you won't get your rank bonus in the game for having ranks behind you. The combat resolution.
I see.
So it's kind of giving and taking. You're giving more attacks while taking the potential. If you completely whiff, you won't get any more rank bonus.
I see. And then that's also more difficult to move around, I guess.
Oh yeah, he had an issue where after deployment, he was trying to figure out deploying the skeletons. He was trying to figure out where to put his archers because he can't fire over his guys, and the bone dragon was kind of stuck behind the 10 wide skeletons.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did he have movement trays yet?
He did not.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine you'd almost want 2 different movement trays, wouldn't you? You'd want what would it be, 5x4 and the 2x10.
Mm-hmm.
So, because isn't that a thing? I mean, the movement goes model to model. So if you want to reform, I guess a guy in a 2x10 can walk his way back to the back row of the 5x5, can't he?
Yeah, well, you just do a reform maneuver. So you would just say these guys are going to reform. They don't move at all. They just change their positioning.
Oh, see, I thought that worked model to model, like the guy actually having to walk over there. But that's my 40K brain working with my, pile-ins, consolidates, etc.
Yeah.
Neat.
But, Kings won the game. It was a good time. Hoping to get more Old World in.
I wish they would give me something to buy. They gave you new stuff to buy. Speak on that a bit, because the keys to the World Champion reveals were the Krieg and all that Old World stuff.
Don't forget the Eldar.
The Eldar happened too. By the way, if you were listening a couple, I don't know, last episode before last, I called it. They revealed that with the new Eldar Codex, they are going to do away with the Strands of Fate as the army rule. It is still going to be available as one of the detachment rules, but they're changing it completely, because I supposed that being able to insert die rolls and thereby not participate in some of the hit wound save, you know, game mechanic that we do, was too powerful to then have any kind of detachment rules that would feel like they were helpful to anything, right?
Yeah.
And it appears they did exactly that. So now you can't just bypass playing the game. You're going to have to do different stuff, which I think is good. They probably should have done it for Sisters, and maybe they have seen that. I mean, the Sisters Codex has come out, right? It was one of the small ones. And
I think so.
Sisters are crushing all over the place, especially in. It doesn't seem like, which I haven't even looked at the results of the World Championship, but from what I understand, like the local squad has been doing team tournaments now. Parenthetical. This is my editorializing. To flatten the math of tournament play even more, but that's a discussion for another day. But I've seen them talk about how you just give your worst player in a team Sisters and let them sort it out because they're so easy to just be good with.
Oh yeah,
and that's entirely because you can bypass chunks of the siphoning system at critical points. So I'm glad about it. I imagine that a whole lot of people will be selling their Eldar cheap before they even see the Codex, because that's the sort of knee-jerk reaction we tend to get, which will tie into our main topic. Did you do any hobbying?
Well, I mentioned this in our podcast that got deleted, but my made-to-order Old World stuff finally came in that I ordered back on May 4th. So it's been a lot of months of waiting, and I almost got back. I almost contacted Games Workshop to see if my order was even coming at all.
And then
when
it
they
showed.
say it takes, when they say it takes 180 days, sometimes it just takes 180 days.
Yeah, I saw the pictures of that giant. You got that giant, and he looks absolutely goofy.
It's a solid metal. He is going to be a blast to build and paint. Got the stone trolls, 2 sets of 3 stone trolls, so 6 of them, the old goofy 90s stone trolls.
You know what? When I first saw those, I thought that those were the same trolls that Craig has for his AOS army. And I don't think they are. I think he's got like the AOS new plastic version, but man, you want to talk about like version 1, version 2. They looked indistinguishable from the little picture, with no context.
Yeah, it's very much an evolution of the model.
How are you going to glue that giant together? Like if he tips off the table, he's busting into 6 big chunks, right?
Yeah, might be more than 6, but yeah, he'll probably damage whatever he hits. If he hits a floor, he'll probably crack it. This guy's all parts solid metal, weighs maybe 5 pounds. I don't know if it's 5 pounds, but it's definitely going on 2 or 3.
I tell you, when I pick up a metal model, there's an amount of like, oh shoot, that's because it's not that. Look, these things are small; they're not actually heavy, but damn it, they're heavier than you expect.
Yeah, so hopefully no one's gonna be knocking him off into the floor, and if he does fall, he'll at least like timber onto the soft mat.
Yeah, use that Gorilla Glue gel to stick those guys together.
I was planning on that, and maybe some baking soda to really like concrete it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I use the Gorilla Glue gel for everything, and honestly, I don't use the only thing that I use it for that it would actually be necessary for is sticking the magnets on the bottom. Because people talk about their magnets pull off onto their trays after a while, and I've never had that happen because my stuff is Gorilla Glue gelled up there. You would drill a hole in the bottom of the base before the magnet came off. I built and primed. Oh, so I got a new data sheet. For no reason at all, they gave your boy a new data sheet for Chaos. They gave me the Nemesis Claw, who are the Night Lords. They're basically Night Lords Legionaries from the Kill Team box that came out a while ago. You can run them in 5 or 10 man squad. They've got, I'm going to use air quotes here, special weapons. They've got the sort of weapons that came in the box, which is like some sort of chainsword on a stick and some sort of big chunky chain thing with some skulls on it. And that's pretty much it. They're not terribly potent or anything, but they have stealth as a unit. And their other ability is if you're engaged in combat with them, then you can't put stratagems on your guys that are engaged with them.
Taking in their boots, too scared to pop a strat.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I think what is it called? I think it's like something like voice eater or something. It's weird. It's as if
Batman.
Yeah, it's as if they can't. It's as if they can't hear their commanders tell them anything when they're fighting the Night Lords. I
want to say I've seen some people upset that they're kind of just legionaries in the game.
Well, I don't know what do you want them to be? I thought it was interesting sometime, and maybe people see this all the time, but for me, it was the first like brand new kind of data sheet that I've gotten in my 40K playing. Obviously things have come out of the air, Vashtor and stuff like that, but where you can compare sort of apples to apples. So they're just different types of legionary, and they've got a slightly different ability. They don't reroll wounds when on an objective and stuff, but they have stealth, and so that's -1 to hit wherever you fire at them. And a regular set of 5, which is how I run my legionaries, is 90 points, and these guys are 110 points. So basically, stealth costs 20 points. We could infer, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So -1 to hit is worth 20 points.
They have no deep strike ability.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look. But
what I would have expected, some sort of like scout deployment.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do. Now, you can get that kind of stuff with with the Alpha Legion detachment. You can like give some battle line stuff scout, because I think they're battle line. I may be wrong.
Okay.
But yeah. I did find out though, so I've got my guys built and they're primed, and then I need to do all the airbrushing to get the blues on them, and then it's painting trim and painting lightning. So all you people to get upset about painting chaos trim, I'm also painting lightning now. So stick that in your pipe. But I've got the 5 Night Lords and it's basically just the special weapons guys. The regular dudes I don't even care about. And then I saw that I've still got 5 heads and shoulder pads left. So if I feel really spicy when that new Chaos Lord with jump pack comes out, I might just have to end up with a Night Lord Raptor squad.
Like you should almost just go right on ahead and start building out a full Night Lord's team.
Well, I mean, I'm not about to be.
You're already getting there.
I'm not about to be painting no tanks blue. We're not doing that. We've got them black, and we've done them once, and I don't like tanks that much. Also, I feel like the faction specific vehicles start feeling a little funky, with exception of things like Thousand Suns and Death Guard and stuff that's really got its own flavor. But I don't know. I feel like the tanks might as well be either black or silver. You're either an Iron Warrior tank or you're a Black Legion tank, and everybody else I feel like is, they're doing other stuff. But that's just my own personal headcanon. But that is what I've been doing in the hobby. We both lost to Craig.
Yeah.
I guess it's his house.
He's got that magic field going on.
Home field advantage is what they call that.
Yeah.
Close that bits box.
Oh.
All right. I don't know how much time we actually have on this thing, that we can make.
Yeah.
But I've got 3 points.
Okay.
The internet has ruined 40K.
Ruined it.
Do you agree? I mean, look.
I don't know if I'd say it's definitely affected 40K as things have gone more mainstream with the game. There's definitely been a cultural shift with the player base.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Okay, the irony is not lost on us that we are an online 40K podcast, and without the internet, we would be unable to do all of this. So we hear you, but get in the comments and complain about it anyway, because that drives engagement, and then more people listen to us, which is what we're trying to have. The internet's ruined everything, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's just horrible.
It's
I hate the
been
internet.
it's been a bit of a failed experiment while also being a huge success. I love that
For
meme.
most things.
I love the meme. It's not even a meme. It's just like a statement that pops up every now and then where it's like, you remember when we thought people were dumb due to lack of availability of knowledge? And then it's like, yeah, so it wasn't that. Being able to know everything.
Knowledge.
Yeah, being able to know everything has not helped anyone. And so we get into my first point for my case that I'm going to make, how the internet has messed up 40K. And the reason for this discussion is that so some of you who may feel a little disenchanted might find some peace and understanding in hearing some like-minded types of statements that you can share with your other friends who also may be feeling similar to you, to get back to the fun of this thing. Because I was thinking about this in the shower, where I do the best of my thinking as I prepare to face the tortures of the day, as we all do, I assume, or possibly I need therapy.
That thinking chair in the shower.
I don't have do you have a chair in yours?
No.
Austin is 75 years old. I don't think anyone would doubt it. Anyway, I was thinking, like, what is this podcast about? Like, we did a lot of lore when Casey was on. We do less lore now. We do more thinking. And I think what we're trying to do here is remind people and ourselves that this stuff is supposed to be fun before it is competitive, before it is competition anyway, before it is winning and losing, before it is, a cash vacuum.
Yeah.
Fun. Austin's thinking, is that what we're doing?
I was looking at the floor thinking.
Shower floor?
Carpet floor.
Oh. No chair / podcast recording rig in the shower yet. Austin has nothing for this. I'm like, did he disconnect?
Yeah, I think one. If we're gonna start on what's going on, I think the internet's definitely had a major effect on how people perceive how they should play the game.
So that's actually yeah. Go ahead. That's actually my point too. The note I put down is there's a tribalism toward a competitive, ilk, right? It makes sense that the competitive 40K people would have a large and loud voice on the internet because it's in the name. They're the competitive people. They desire, and I'm speaking quite generally, they desire to win the argument, win the game, be heard, and be correct. And none of those things are bad. They just are. Whereas people that don't care about that kind of stuff, they don't really have a dog in the fight of the conversation. And so the competitive talk, I think, tends to feed itself because it doesn't have any opposition.
Kind of. It's like, one thing is that when people get into the game now, they always go online and say, well, what's good? What do I need to buy? It's kind of like, if you're just now getting into the game, you're having to face these purchases, and you don't want your purchases to be bad. You're like, I've got $200 to spend that I've saved up to spend on this new hobby. point me in the direction because I want to get into the game, and people that would show them what they need for the game and say, well, this is good, you need to buy this, buy that. And then further looking up how to play their armies would then push them more towards competitive discussion boards and commentators.
Yeah. I mean, has it always been this way? Has it
I don't
always
believe
been
so.
has it always been a game first mentality? Because Games Workshop tends to talk about how they're a model company, not so much a games company, but then they are called Games Workshop, and people do, but I don't feel that I'm ready to separate these models from their game piece purpose, right? Like, I mean, there are painters who just paint. They don't care anything. They've never looked at the rules a single time, but that is a very small group of people.
I was reading recently about this kind of topic, and some of the older players from older editions were talking about how in the past competitive play was very much taboo for Warhammer in its earlier editions. It's only been recently with a lot more of the internet discussion that it's kind of flipped on its head, and now competitive is kind of the way. Competitive and match play is the way to play the game. It used to be that if you were looking to turn this toy soldiers painting game into some kind of tournament scene, they'd look at you and go, well, why would you want to do that? This game is obviously not balanced. We're here to kind of like tell stories on the tabletop through our dice rolling.
Yeah, and I always say that chess is what that is, right? Like in the pod that I don't feel like got as much traction as it deserved. Is 40K chess, gambling, or sports? Chess is the one where you have full control out of every lever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I made the case. I think it was a strong one, but it's not a very good game. People complain constantly about what's wrong with the game. Oh, I don't like this. I go, you go. I want automated activations. I want a keyword system. I want a super hardcore codified timing setup. And it's like,
I want more paintball fields.
Yeah, I want more paintball fields because the shooting is intrinsically funky, And it's like, well, that's because that's not what any of this was ever for. And
yeah.
I mean, we're in danger of getting into a totally different discussion, but I will say, I play other games, and I play games that are way less polished for a competitive experience, and I play some that are way more polished. And I got to be honest, the 40K is almost always... The 40K has a higher chance of being more fun than either of those two.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is... just quick examples. Judge Dredd from Warlord Games. That's one that is way super janky. Star Wars Shatterpoint and Marvel Crisis Protocol are on the other side of designed to be competitive. You get an experience with Shatterpoint. And whether you play different stuff or different missions or whatever, it tends to be very much that experience. Similar to playing chess in that, the knights always do what the knights do and the bishops always do what the bishops do, right? It has that kind of feeling of it's all very particular. And then Judge Dredd is always just a total bleep show.
Yeah.
Sometimes Judge Dredd walks out, tells everybody to drop it, and they all freeze on the spot, and then he beats them to death, and it's done. And then sometimes a random ganger with a pistol comes up and shoots Judge Dredd dead. And it's like, that doesn't make sense, but it's what happened today.
Mm-hmm.
And in both of those cases, those can be fun or not fun, right? But with 40K, I feel like they're in this lovely place in the middle where I showed up to play a match play game. Whether it goes well or doesn't, there's so much going on from one turn to the next that it has moments of a lot of fun. Or you show up and you're playing a casual game and it gets very silly because for some reason all the tanks in the world can't stop whatever super non-meta character that you rocked up with, and just today that guy is unstoppable. Me and Casey had this game the other day where all the orc shooting in the world could not move my old Chaos Lord and Terminator armor that no one uses because they say he's too expensive. You can't take him. He's unplayable. I was like, well, I played him and had a lot of fun. But yeah, the tribalism, I think, is bred just by the internet because there's nothing stopping it. You can go find all the competitive stuff that you want to find, and it feeds itself. I've got another part to add to what you were saying about how the old timers talked about it, and I think the internet is the reason for codex creep to be as strong as it is.
Also, I'd like to hear that explained.
All right, so here's why. I noticed when they were talking about the new Astra Militarum Codex that they kept talking about, like, oh man, these new weapons, spicy new weapons, new unit with some new weapons, spicy new weapons, and they did sound spicy. The stat lines that the guys in the World Championship preview presentation were shouting out, and I thought, dang man, Astra Militarum about to eat as if they're not already, taking oops all tanks since they got their indexed update. But this ties in with point one of my 3 points. So far we've heard, the sort of the internet creating this sort of thought bubble of competitive and that sort of tribalism. But this codex creep thing, I think, comes from it being a part of this groupthink that the internet allows. But also just the existence of the internet makes it so that a new codex comes out, and by hook or crook, usually by crook, the entire thing is available on the internet to look at immediately. Even if it's not like a scanned PDF, which stop it, people, then there's people like us. They get way more into the nuts and bolts and minutia of this stuff, i.e. boring stuff, that go through and they tell you every single stat line. They tell you this stuff is S tier and A tier and B tier for every single data sheet in that codex on day one. And then they're able to make inferences on what is and is not a worth buying unit. And now people's purchasing is informed by what is good and what is not. Whereas I think used to, before the internet, you would buy the codex, or you bought models first and codex later, and you'd flip through it, and all the kind of the lore and the pictures of the models and stuff like that, the stat lines too, would sell you on some stuff. Oh yeah. But I don't think if you were just you with no internet, no groupthink, no galaxy mind, no hive mind, right? If you were just you with your codex, I don't know how much you'd be saying, oh, that guy hits on 2s instead of 3s and does 2 damage at 1 AP. Like, I don't think that's how you think about it.
I'd probably just look at it and go, oh, that guy looks cool. This thing does that. I want to see that happen in the game. That would be fun to see.
Exactly, and
you'd be more absorbed into the game rather than trying to math everything out, trying to get the edge on everyone.
Yeah, exactly, and also
mind your 20 chicken walkers.
Yeah, who would you be getting the edge on? Old Gary with his 5th edition models that he's like, no, it's not that much smaller than a current Rhino, right? Here's another thing. Pre-internet, again, what we're advocating for is to wave a magic wand, have the internet not exist, and then us not be a thing. And I know there's some people listening that are like, yeah, that'd be good. That would be good. You guys are the worst. But you're here. We know. We love you. We care about you. Um,
Stop it.
but the other thing is you'd get your codex and you'd be looking through it and you'd be looking at all the cool stuff. And then you'd look at the shelf, right? Because I'm imagining you buy this thing and you're at the counter. You and the guy at the counter are talking and looking through the new codex. He doesn't have one, right? And then you're like, hey, you guys have one of those. The fact that they have it would be what, that's what you buy. And that's not nothing.
It's like, oh, look, new codec. Here's a new unit. Oh, man. And they've got it. Oh, man, I got to go buy that now.
Yeah. I mean, just the availability. Like, we are not better, I don't think, as a society for having absolutely everything in the world available all the time. Like, I understand that there's a debt problem in this country. All right? That's now look, people have been in debt for a long time, but if you had to fly to France to get some stuff, there'd be some people that get stopped at the gate.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the internet's such a can of worms. There's like no getting away from its implications.
Oh, but back to how that causes the codex creep. I think that Games Workshop has come to know that that's what happens when they release a new codex, and therefore every codex needs to be a little more powerful than the last one, because at the end of the day they're trying to sell stuff. They're trying to sell these books. They're trying to sell the code in the back of the book so that you can use the app. They're trying to sell these models. And so it behooves them to rejig what are the best units versus what were the best units, and increase the power level with every codex release, at least initially, so that everybody that is going to go and look at the tier lists of armies and things at the release of every codex will buy it. Because if they released one that wasn't great, then no one will buy it. No one will buy those models. And it has got to be the easiest bit of data for them to collate at Games Workshop when they, Gene Stealer Codex was not super powerful. And I bet you they didn't move no Gene Stealers.
Yeah, everything's just going to, things are going to be in power and out of power, and then next edition is going to be flipped on its head based on what was sold and not sold.
Yeah, which I don't have any problem with that, because I think
that's just the way the business works.
Yeah, it's the way the business has to work. My last point is this: the internet hive mind does no favors to any of this. It takes the fun out of the thing, because 40K as a game, or any game, is a puzzle, and there is a most optimal solution to that puzzle. Every time they rebalance it, there's a new answer, and the power of millions of people looking at it, thinking about it, making spreadsheets, using AI, writing algorithms, okay? It is not that complicated a puzzle for that amount of intellectual investment.
You'll see a FAQ come out, and then like less than an hour later you'll see post over what's the new meta, what's the new broken unit to spam, what's this, what's that. Just crazy.
I know, and my question is that fun?
Okay, we solved the game. Move on to the next FAQ, please, GW.
Right.
That's what we need. That's why people want a digital rule set with weekly releases, so the game state can never be solved.
Well, yeah, but then also the game state can never be had their head got around either. Like,
no, you'll see Jerry, who gets maybe one game a month, having to relearn the game constantly.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's not how Pylons work anymore, Jerry. It's like, oh, god dang it. Here's the other.
How it worked last month.
Here's the other thing about that too, right? And I think this part is a little lost on people. And there's another conversation to be had about whether or not it's just, what do we have, 30 years of video gaming in our history of mankind now that has colored all of this, which I think that's as much a part of it as the internet. But that's a discussion for another time. But there comes a point with all the editing of 40K that runs into the reality of this is a game that you play with little plastic men holding various swords and rifles with dice in your pocket, okay? There needs to be an amount of I need to just be able to keep in my head what a chainsword does, right?
Yeah.
Just for the, something new players always say about 40K is like, I don't even understand how anybody plays it. It takes 5 hours to play. It's like, well, it doesn't take me no 5 hours to play, but I play a lot. And I play one army. So I have most all of this stuff in my head. I don't have to look up hardly anything. And then, you get systems to how to look it up. You got systems to how to roll stuff. And you get systems to remember who's who and what's what and how to lay them out even before you deploy them. Like all that kind of stuff. And you need that because otherwise otherwise it's just spreadsheet reference the game. And that doesn't sound fun.
Oh.
But yeah, the hive mind, I think, is a big negative because it's so much more fun to discover something, some little combination, especially in the way that you think of a war game. When you think of war game, especially you playing a guard, you've got dudes on foot, you've got mechanization, you've got cavalry. Like you can really think in your mind how this could work with like a flanking cavalry charge and we're going to use the tanks to soften them up and then we'll charge the infantry in and tie them up in the middle and all this kind of stuff, right? Now that's not
I'm going to spam one unit.
Right. Well, and also I think mainly due to the way that the meta is always moving around and being pursued, that's not how it goes. But imagine how much more fun it'd be if that's what you cooked up on your couch.
Relying on any net list and just making your own stuff, spending your time kind of looking over what you got, thinking, what can I do with all this?
Yeah, and the other thing,
getting creative.
Yeah, and the other thing, the flanking cavalry charge is not dead either because I've got those couple of tanks now that only have like an 18-inch range. And so it's all about hiding them behind a piece of terrain, luring my opponent's expensive stuff close to me, and then springing the trap. Like how in a Band of Brothers, those tanks would just creep out from behind a building, and then it was a big deal. Yeah. But we're nearly out of time. Long and short of it is, I think we agree that the internet is terrible and you should not use it.
Disconnect your modem now.
Right after liking, subscribing, and commenting with what you think about all of this. Are you interested in having fun? Tell us that. Yeah, because I'm trying to have fun. Me and Craig had fun. I got my head kicked in and we still had fun.
Losing is fun.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you get to play with your stuff. Do we have an exclusive Space Marine segment? I know I don't.
Exclusive Space Marine segment. Check out Amazon for the new trailer for The Lost Levels featuring Captain Titus and the Ultramarines.
Oh, that's going to be good, isn't it?
I don't know. I haven't watched it.
All I've been watching is Clarkson's Farm.
I don't know what that is.